The latest from Skopje there. Well, for more, let's speak to Daniel Korski, who's from the European Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, we're hearing that the centre-right may have won nothing official yet, but those are what some preliminary results are showing us. What would that mean for Macedonia?
Well, first of all, no matter who wins the election, they'll have to deal with these allegations of fraud and the kind of violence that have marred the country in a very sad way, because, of course, Macedonia for many years has been ahead of the pack in the region. So whoever wins, they're going to have to deal with these allegations, rerun the election and communicate to the world that Macedonia is on track for European integration. And secondly, they're going to have to deal with some of these outstanding disputes with Greece and the EU agenda of reform of the government and reform of the police services.
We'll go back to the EU agenda, which is quite crucial. Let's start with the violence. Obviously, the elections have exacerbated it. What's at the root of it?
I mean, it's difficult to know exactly now what lies at the root here. Surely these wider tensions around the name dispute, around the independence of Kosovo have influenced the mood, as it were, of the election. But probably most of the violence is about an inter-Albanian feud, about who shall, if you will, rule the roost among the Albanian community once the elections are over.
Now, of course, Macedonia has ambitions to join the EU, to join NATO. One of the things it has to prove is that it's stable enough to join these institutions, something which I would guess it's failed to do over the past few days.
I don't think everything is over for Macedonia, but it's absolutely certain that Macedonia has an enormous struggle now to come back, not just to form a government, to rerun the election, but to show the international community that it's serious about reform, that it's serious about peace and stability, and most importantly, serious about reconciliation among the various different communities.
Now, it's a relatively small country which many people around the world may not know a lot about. Why does it want to join the EU and NATO, and why is it key for those institutions to have Macedonia on board?
I mean, first of all, it's a very volatile neighborhood. I mean, it was only sort of 10, 12 years ago that we saw great violence, and if you look north of Macedonia, you have Serbia and an election in Serbia that we haven't quite seen the results of yet, but it could see radical forces return in Belgrade. To the other side, we have Kosovo and a continuing stalemate between the Kosovo Albanian community and the Serbian community. So this is a very volatile neighborhood, and of course Macedonia would like to seek the protection of the EU, the protection of NATO, in order to shield itself from some of this neighboring instability.
Well, speaking of neighbours, one is being particularly unfriendly, and that's Greece, a dispute over the very name. Do you see that as something that's easily resolvable? I mean, obviously not, but what action could Macedonia take, short of changing its name?
It's very difficult, because at this stage it doesn't look like anyone wants to challenge Greece. It doesn't look like the US is able to push Greece in one direction or another, or the EU can indeed do so itself. So, in a sense, we're looking at a prolonged stalemate. What can Macedonia do, as you say? Well, I think there are a number of compromises the Macedonians need to contemplate at this stage in order to, shall we say, lower the temperature. They've renamed the airport Alexander the Great Airport, and that has riled the Greeks incredibly. So I think the Macedonians will need to take a hard look at a range of, if you will, auxiliary issues to see if they can lower the temperature before they get to a resolution of the name itself.
Well, something for the new leader to think about if, when he's elected. Daniel Korski, thank you very much for joining us.